I'm Jeff Weir. I'm the animation supervisor on BioShock 2. On BioShock 2, the animation supervisor had a hybrid role. I was in charge of character development all the way from concept to execution of the animation in the game. So it was really broad. So basically I worked with concept artists like Colin Fix, one of our senior concept artists, designing characters like the new Subject Delta, Big Daddy, and characters like Big Sister and all those kind of really fun, interesting characters from the new game. Going from BioShock 1 to BioShock 2's animation, one of the main areas of focus was in the idea of character empathy. By that we mean we want people to really care about the characters they're seeing in the game. So for that, we wanted to make characters that had more detail in their faces. So when you came up to them, you could understand their plight and their loss and everything that happened to them. And so for that, we have a full set of blend-shaped animations for their face, and we also did things like normal map blending, which means that if someone goes from being like a straight normal face to being like this, you can see little wrinkles forming in their forehead and crow's feet around their eyes and that kind of stuff. And that basically gives you more to latch onto in terms of the character. This is the character of Grace. Here she is doing some of her acting for a key scene that she has in the game. Over here you can see that we set this very complex system of controls for her. And you see this is controls only her upper lip here. And if I move this around here, you can see how I can control either side of her lip there. Well, basically, for animation, what we do first is we talk with Jordan, our creative director, and we try to figure out who the character really is. For the Big Sister, she was a really interesting character because she's what happens to a little sister when she grows up and becomes someone like a Big Daddy. And for her, that meant that she had this really awkward quality to her where she just grew a foot in a period of a year, and she's not used to her body, and that made her kind of this idea of this kind of unstable grace, where she kind of was starting to be someone who had this beautiful womanly quality, but still was sort of gangly and not really sure of how to handle herself. So once we have that idea figured out, we start working on previous ideas of how she actually would move. For that, I might get up and sort of walk really funny around the room, or we might look at some footage of a ballet dancer and someone who's a paraplegic, and sort of get inspiration from all different sources. And then we start just doing animation, and from there we just start testing things out in the game and seeing how it feels, and then seeing what resonates with the character. So here she is. There's her wireframe mesh. You can see all the detail. This is her just walking and going from being, passive to being aggressive. And you see that really kind of, she has this really kind of crippled kind of inset leg and really kind of not really feeling like she's a normal person at all, like she's broken and misused. And she, of course, as such, is very violent. So here's one of her grapple attacks right here. She's a very violent lady. In designing the new Big Daddy, Subject Delta, it was a really huge challenge. There's so much weight and so much love for the Big Daddies and who they are. We want to make sure that our character stood beside Rosie and Bouncer and these other Big Daddies from the first game. Also, he had to be a different Big Daddy. He's a prototype Big Daddy. He's not like the ones you see in the first game. He's not this guy that's a single-use melee guy like this big guy back here, or like Rosie who just shoots guns from afar. He really is sort of like a jack-of-all-daddies, kind of guy. Basically he's a test bed for seeing what works and didn't work. So basically with that we decided to make a character that was a little more human proportioned. A guy that was a little more ready to be agile and move around, but still powerful like a daddy. We also wanted to be very mysterious and keep with the feel that Big Daddies are unknown, so you can't see him at all, and no one has any idea what's inside them. No one really ever gets an idea of what's inside a Big Daddy. That's kind of the mystery of the game. And of course, one of the things we also work out is how he's actually going to work in the game. So here you can see his health and Eve that work down his arm in order for him to be able to fire plasmids, or in his drill, of course, to be able to do stuff. And here's I'll show you his drill. And this is a fully upgraded drill. The drill started as more of a base model, but we use a lot of, I have the concepts for this here too. Here's a concept for it. A beautiful illustration by Mark Gabbana. I'm working out all the forms. So basically, like, each weapon in the game has all these different levels of upgrades. So here's the base drill would just be this, but then we had this sort of counter-spinning drill for extra damage, and these diamond heads and these nozzles that basically allow it to go along without dying and that kind of stuff. You know, being new to the BioShock franchise, it was a huge, weight on my shoulders. I mean, I knew how much everyone loved the first game and how wonderful it was, and for me, it took a really long time to really just study it and understand what it is that made it what it was. Like I said, BioShock to me is a very complicated mix of ingredients. It's like this curry of like 25 ingredients. It's not like a simple dish. It's like this thing where you put some of this, some of that, some of this in it, and then all of a sudden it just starts tasting wrong. So it takes a long time to figure out what it is that makes BioShock BioShock. And for me, it was just exciting to sort of basically dive into like Kogi's brain or Jordan's brain and sort of figure out what it was to them and start gelling in this idea of what BioShock really is. And it really was a blast because it's such a rich world to play in.